If you're using Google Analytics 4 or GA4, then you need to know this important fact about your data, or you could be greatly and vastly and significantly, and all the lees, misinterpreting your results. Hi, guys. Welcome back. David Feldman-Makrias here. And today we're going to show a quick video that is part of the nuances of Google Analytics 4 that we just don't seem to see talked about very often. So let's get into it right now. I have two tabs here, and I pulled up the same client. Okay, this is a lead generation client, specifically a car dealer. And I'm looking at the last 28 days of data, which I'll be looking in both tabs. So interestingly enough, we found, my team and I found a lot of inconsistencies. Now, I say my team, I don't really, it was them that found it. I just noticed some things, but they were the ones that discovered the actual reasoning why this is. So basically, if you're in Google Analytics 4 and you followed all the setup assistant steps shown to you from a Google Analytics 3 account, or you followed Google's advice to set it up in a certain way, you might have this little guy hanging out. Again, this little guy, little orange, hey, caution cone. What is this? So this says thresholding applied. Google Analytics has applied thresholding to one or more cards in this report and will only display the data in the cards when the data meets the minimum aggregation thresholds. So basically, when this happens here, there's what's called Google thresholding. So what is that exactly? Let's define it. Why data may be withheld from reports and explorations. If you have limited access to data in a report or exploration, it may be because a data threshold has been applied. Data thresholds are applied to prevent anyone viewing a report or exploration from inferring the identity or sensitive information of individual users based on demographics, interest, or other signals present in the data. Data thresholds are system defined. Blah, 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 blah. What you'll see when the data in a report exploration is limited due to data thresholds, the data quality indicator at the top of the report includes this message: Google Analytics has applied thresholding. Right there. And that's my head. But that's what we're talking about. So here's the kind of main caveat. When data thresholds are applied, demographic data may be withheld when viewing report or explorations or making API calls. Google Signals. Data may be withheld when Google Signals is enabled and either the blended or observed reporting identity is used and you have a lower user count in the specified date range. When Google Signals has been enabled, reports with low user counts may continue to be subject to thresholding for a period of time after Google Signals is disabled. If the device-based reporting identity is used, you should not see the data thresholding, blah, 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 blah. So what does all this mean? So basically, Google recommends that any Google Analytics account applies Google Data Signals. Data Signals is, my understanding, is basically like almost like a lookalike audience, if you will. Because of all the switch from privacy regulations and things of that nature, Google actually blends your website traffic data, right, which we would associate with Google Analytics, along with other data that isn't necessarily, how do I say, isn't necessarily a result or have been influenced by your website. So is there data within your GA4 report that's supposed to be all about your website that's actually, in fact, not about your website? The answer is yes. And it's like, what? Why would that even be a thing? Data signals is Google's way of interpolating and using lookalike audiences to help influence and direct Google Analytics and its own audience data in the correct way. But really, I think Google just uses this to mucky up the waters and sort of have this black box effect on data. They've been very much like that, especially over the past year to 2 years. So, what does that mean? Well, again, if you see this guy here, then you know that thresholding is applied. And thresholding could be applied for a couple different reasons. What we did, and this was great of one of my team members, Seth, what we did is we actually set up multiple Google Analytics profiles. And I should say Google Analytics properties. Because in the property, you can have different settings. And we wanted to track the difference. Does one property having data signals turned off versus one property with data signals turned on yield different results? One of the things I always found, especially switching to GA4, I would always be hard on our developers because I would look inside the conversion report, which is pretty important, and I'd show only like 6, when in fact we had made, or we were supposed to make, 10, 15 conversions that have significant data. And I would always go to the developers and go, why are these conversions not pushing into Google Analytics? They're for sure happening. Why is this not happening? You guys must have something broken. Well, it turns out they didn't. Because here's the deal. For this client, I'm looking at the last 28 days. I'm looking at the conversion report under engagement, and you'll have to trust that it's the same client. I can't disclose it, but it is. So what do we see here? This is with thresholding or not unsampled data, double negative, thresholding, and we see 6 total conversions. Click to call, e-price, text my trade, click to chat, check availability, finance form. We see 778 conversions, 412 total users, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm going to take you to the GA4 property of this account that has been running also for the last 28 days, that has unsampled report and is not thresholding. What do we see here? We see the green check mark. Green check mark is good. Unsampled report. This report is based on 100% of available data. There is no interpolation, right? So maybe as I read this too, what does sample data really mean? I think it not necessarily blends data of that's not on your website, but basically shows that, okay, there's not enough data from your website using Google data signals to make 100% clarification on trends and patterns. So Google's going to fill in the gaps, basically, which still muckies up the water. Please comment if you have a better explanation or interpolation or know a little bit more than this than I do. But for this client, last 28 days, same time frame. When we scroll down in the engagement conversions report, we have 12 available events coming through. And notice my number of conversions and total users is increased. It's different. 1,095 versus 778. 579 total users versus 412. So what does that mean? Well, the data signals turned off gets actually more clean data, right? And that's where we get to see all the events. We have events missing when the data signals are turned on, which sucks. So it begs the question, how do we turn off data signals, and do we even need to bother with data signals? Well, if you run Google Ads and you want to do anything with remarketing, then you do have to use data signals. That's part of Google's policy. So if you want to create audiences within Google Analytics 4 and then remarket them in your Google Ads account, then you need to have data signals turned on. But if you really want to track your conversions and see the difference between data signals and no data signals, then you can make another property under the same account. You could label it as such, client name, data signals, client name, no data signals, and then you can track accordingly. And how you do this, or how you change this setting, is pretty simple. I'm going to click the admin gear icon here. When I do that, it's going to give me a whole bunch of stuff. You should be able to go up what's called Setup Assistant. And when you do Setup Assistant, right here, Customize Data Collection and Display, notice that this one has data signals turned off, while this account that I just switched to when I go to Setup Assistant has data signals turned on. So best of both worlds, we would recommend to create multiple properties, switch these settings, test it for yourself, see what you get. These types of analysis does require events and conversions to be set up ahead of time and set up correctly. So if you're struggling with that, there's plenty of videos out there on YouTube on how to set up events within GTM to go into GA4 or Google Analytics 4, and so on and so forth. So guys, so what's the conclusion of this video? Not everything that Google recommends as a default setting is necessarily good. You need to really have a good understanding and explore outside the bounds so you can get accurate reporting and test, right? Have data signals on and data signals off, see what you get. But I personally like to report on data signals being on. I'm sorry, not data signals being on, data signals being off. I purposely favor data signals off because when I come to this conversion report, it's actually going to show me all the conversions that indeed happened, or at least more so. So, guys, if you enjoyed this at all, please give me a like. Shout out to any other content you would like me to make. I'd be more than happy to. And if you have different opinions about data signals or know something else to add to the conversation, please do. This is David Feldman-Makrias. See you next time.